Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Muddy Mint. Today we are making orange and bergamot soap, and it is a goat milk soap. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to show you how we add milk into our soaps. All right, so there are 3 different ways to add milk to soap. The most popular way, and the way that I learned first, is to take your goat milk, turn it into ice cubes, and then use those ice cubes to create your lye water solution. And that is what's called a full milk replacement. In other words, you're taking all the water from your recipe and using goat milk instead. The second way of doing it is called the milk and oils method, which is what I'm going to show you here today. And I've been using this method for a really long time because I got pretty frustrated with the ice cube goat milk method pretty early on. I'm not a super patient person. And as our batches got bigger, it just wasn't really feasible anymore. So I'm going to show you how to do milk and oils. And then the third method is to use powdered milk. And so you can simply add powdered milk directly to your oils or to your batter. And you can also reconstitute the powdered milk and turn it into goat milk and use it that way. So today I'm going to show you how to use the milk and oils method. I'm going to go through there's like a tiny bit of math, very small amount. So don't worry, it's super duper easy. And let's just dive right into it. So orange and bergamot is a soap that has 16.9 ounces of lye. And so I'm going to put my goggles on for this. Anytime I'm anywhere near lye or touch lye, I like to have my goggles on. So I've measured out 16.9 ounces of lye. So this doesn't change from, a normal recipe. So you still need to measure out your lye the same way you normally would, and the lye amount doesn't change. As you know, when you're making soap, the lye amount is the most important part because it's going to be the thing that saponifies your oils. So that doesn't change. The thing that can change is water. So your water can either be just water. In other words, you can take my recipe is 16.9 ounces of lye and 33.8 ounces of water. And so measure out your lye exactly how you would. And then the next thing you want to do is measure out the exact same amount of water. So the amount of lye you're going to use is exactly the same as the amount of water you're going to use, or vice versa, because the lye amount is the important amount. So you don't change the lye amount, you're simply going to change the water amount. So I've got 16.9 ounces of lye here. So now I'm going to take my container and I'm going to measure out 16.9 ounces of water. And we're just using distilled water. All right, 16.9. Okay, so we have 1 part water, 1 part lye. They're exactly the same. So when you're making a goat milk soap, typically you don't use water. You're going to use milk for everything. And what you do is you create ice cubes, you put it in this container, and then you slowly add the lye into your ice cubes, and you mix very, very slowly. Normally, when I was making it, I would always make sure that my milk wasn't getting above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I'd always have this heat gun on me, checking, mixing very, very slowly, making sure that the milk didn't go over 80 degrees. And the reason for that is that your milk can scorch. When you're adding lye and it's, creating heat, it's also the lye is reacting with the milk. It's even actually saponifying the milk a little bit, because it's converting some of the fats from the milk into soap. So that's why when you mix your goat milk with lye, you can feel it kind of thicken up a little bit. And if the heat gets too much, then it'll start to scorch and the milk will start to smell and it'll turn kind of this orange color. And I've had this happen before. And so I've always been super duper careful when adding lye to my milk ice cubes. And if you are, if you've been making soap for any length of time, you've probably tried this technique. Often you will put your container of milk ice cubes into another container of ice cubes to make sure that it stays cool, because the lye really heats things up a lot. And so I got frustrated with this very fast. And I wanted a quicker way of doing it. And so I wanted to mix my lye with water. And, that always works super well. The minimum amount of water that you need to mix your lye with is equal amounts. So that's why this is 16.9 ounces of lye. So I poured 16.9 ounces of water. Now, this water is going to be the carrier for the lye. That's what's going to allow the lye to incorporate or mix with the oils, because you need both those things to be liquid. And that's going to saponify the soap. So one thing that I talk about in my book is once the lye is out of the way, then it's time to play, or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but basically once you've created your lye water, then you can do anything you want with that additional liquid. So because we've only used a small amount of our water amount, in my case, I've used half the water that I need for this particular recipe, then I can substitute the other half with something else. I can substitute it with goat milk, which is what I'm going to do today. And we have this Meyenberg goat milk from the grocery store that we use. If you can get goat milk from a farm, or if you have goats, that's even better. And then I brought this out too, because you can actually use any liquid for this technique. You can use carrot juice, you can use coffee, you can use tea. I would just recommend that your liquid be cold. If you're going to use something like beer, then you definitely want to boil off the alcohol, make sure that there's no reaction there. But regardless, any liquid that you want can be added. We often do carrot juice, goat milk, coconut milk, and aloe vera liquid or aloe vera juice. Those are the ones that we use the most. But all of our soaps have some kind of alternative liquid. And this is how we do it. We first mix our lye with equal amounts of water, and then any extra water on top of that, we use goat milk instead. So we've got what I'm going to do off camera is mix up this lye with the water. And then I also have this bucket of our oils. If you are interested in learning how we set up or master batch our oil buckets, you can watch the video that we made about this. I forget the name of it, but apparently a lot of people found it useful. So we have a bunch of these buckets. You'll see there's a bunch back there that already have our oils all prepped. And the only thing that we do is we heat these up and then we add olive oil to them. So this is my orange and bergamot recipe. I'm going to have my lye mixed with equal amounts of water. So just to reiterate, if your recipe, for instance, calls for 5 ounces of lye, you're going to use 5 ounces of water. If your recipe calls for 10 ounces of lye, you're going to use 10 ounces of water. So you get the idea, equal amounts. And that creates what's called a 50-50 lye solution. I talk about this a lot in my book. It's how we make all of our soaps, and it's kind of a more advanced topic, so I won't get into it here. But that's what this is. You're effectively creating a 1-to-1 half water, half lye solution. And then any other water that's in your recipe, you can use for some kind of other liquid. So in my example, I have 16.9 ounces of lye and 33.8 ounces of water. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amount that I already poured. So here I've got 16.9 ounces of water. So I'm going to take my 33.8, which is my total water amount. So if I was just making a regular water soap, if you get a recipe on the internet or you have your own soap recipe and you want to start adding goat milk to your soaps, basically what you'll do is you'll take your full water amount and subtract what you just poured here. So my full water amount is 33.8. I'll subtract the 16.9 ounces, and that leaves me with 16.9 ounces. Surprise, surprise. What we do is we use a 2-to-1 water to lye ratio, and this is on purpose because the math is way easier. So 16.9 ounces of lye, dry lye, 16.9 ounces of water to mix the lye with, and then 16.9 ounces of goat milk. So this is my liquid, that's 2-to-1. A lot of people like to use less water or sometimes more water in their soaps. And if you have more, then that just means you're going to have more goat milk. If you have higher than a 2-to-1 water to lye ratio. If your water to lye ratio is less than that, then you're just going to have less goat milk. And If you're not a fan of that, then you can certainly do the ice cubes method because that'll give you more goat milk. We use 2-to-1 because we want to use as much goat milk as possible. So even though sometimes that means that our soaps are a little bit more fluid and take a little bit longer to cure, we're totally okay with that because we want as much goat milk in there as possible. So we use 2-to-1. So 16.9, 16.9, 16.9. Or let's say you had 5 ounces of lye in your soap. This is all based on the lye amount. 5 ounces of lye, you'd use 5 ounces of water and 5 ounces of goat milk. Now, if your water amount is different and you could use a little bit more than 5 ounces of goat milk if you want, or a little bit less. So that's just up to your recipe. So take your total water amount in your recipe, subtract what you just poured off here, and you're all set. So it's very simple math. Sometimes people get confused about that. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you don't know your water to lye ratio, try using 2-to-1 and see how it goes. And again, the math is super easy that way. All right. What we're going to do next is I'm going to mix this. I'm going to warm up my oils, and then I'm going to be back. We're going to be adding our goat milk. You're probably wondering, when do I add my goat milk? Where do I add it to? You're not going to be adding it to your lye solution. You're going to be adding it directly to the oils. So that's why you can use fresh goat milk. It's super duper easy. This is, I think, the easiest way to add any kind of liquid to your soap. It works beautifully every time. You can adjust any recipe that you have to include goat milk, to include carrot juice, and you don't have to do the dreaded ice cube method, or I think it's the dreaded ice cube method. And you'll see that when you start doing larger batches of soap, doing milk ice cubes really isn't sustainable anymore. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. And I've tried both a soap with full milk amount, meaning, rather than having this split half and half, the whole thing is milk, or a half milk soap. And honestly, I don't notice much of a difference. If you feel very strongly that you want all of your liquid to be replaced by milk, then you're going to have to keep doing the ice cubes method. But otherwise, give this a try and see what you think. All right, I'm going to get things set up and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So the lye that I mixed up has now cooled down. If you'll recall, this is a 1-to-1 water and lye solution. So the amount of lye I had in here was 16.9 ounces. I added 16.9 ounces of water. And so that is our solution all ready to go. So the next step, oh, by the way, this lye is a little bit, let me get my goggles on here. It's a little bit more cloudy than it normally is when you make lye water solution. And I have had a few people ask me about this because they've been concerned. This is what it should look like. And as long as you don't have any bits of lye floating around in there, you're all good. So this looks normal and good. And it's not completely clear, but it's just because it's a more concentrated lye water solution. All right. The other thing I did is warm up my oils. So we put these oils in the microwave and added some olive oil to them. And usually when I do this, I like to get my oils to about 140 degrees Fahrenheit and then add olive oil to that. And then that, because the olive oil is room temperature, it cools everything down. And let's see what we're at right now. These oils are at about 101, 102. So that's perfect because next we're going to add the goat milk in here. And if your goat milk is from the fridge, then it will cool everything down a little bit. And my goat milk was sitting in the fridge, but it's been sitting out on the counter now while the lye was cooling down. So it's still cold, a little bit cool, but it's not quite as cold as it would be if it had come out of the fridge. But you want to take that into account because if you want your oils at a certain temperature, I mean, I don't feel like your oils ever need to be exact. They talk about having these two at within 10 degrees of each other, and it doesn't really have to be that precise, although it is nice to have them pretty close to each other. So I'm going to be adding my goat milk and also my essential oils to this. So let's grab a scale. All right. Okay. I'm going to tear the scale out. And so I had 16.9 ounces of lye, 16.9 ounces of water. That's in here. And now I need another 16.9 ounces of goat milk. So I'm going to add it right into the oils. You could measure this separately if this makes you nervous. We always add everything to our oils. In fact, I don't normally even do this. We normally put our essential oils directly in here from the bottles. But if you're newer, definitely measure this out ahead of time so that you don't make any mistakes. And also, recheck your calculations. Don't be calculating anything on the fly. Have it written down like I do right here so that you don't make any mistakes. All right, so we're putting 16.9 ounces of goat milk. Okay, that's 16.9 ounces. So now we're done with the goat milk. And it's as easy as that, you guys. You just literally put the goat milk in your oils. And if you're using a 50-50 lye water solution for your soaps or for anything, and again, this is covered in my book and in some of our previous videos, so I won't get into it, but you can always add your additional liquid to your oils directly, whether it's carrot juice, aloe vera juice, goat milk, coconut milk, anything, coffee, whatever it might be, you just literally put it right in the oils. Then you just add your lye water like you normally would, except it's just a more concentrated lye water solution. All right, so I'm going to take this off the scale. And that's that. That's how you do milk and oils. I mean, that's kind of the end of that part of the video. If you are trying this at home, then just make sure that you get your calculations right. Make sure you use the correct amount of lye, and then make sure that you have at least the same amount of water as you have lye. That's the minimum amount that you need to dissolve the lye completely in the water. And then everything else, the rest of your water can go in here. And you can put distilled water in here too if you want, if you're using a 50-50 lye water solution. That always seemed kind of weird to me, and I felt like I wanted to put it in the lye solution, but just put it in your oils. It'll be okay, I promise. I was going to put my goggles on, but I'm not ready for the lye yet. Let's move on to our recipe. This is the orange and bergamot goat milk and shea butter soap. So obviously it has goat milk in it, as you just saw. And it also has a high amount of shea butter. This is our recipe with the highest amount of shea butter. Shea butter is actually the #1 ingredient in these base oils. And so it's a really fantastic soap because of the combination of shea butter and goat milk. It's super moisturizing. And then we have this really beautiful blend of essential oils, which is orange and bergamot. So that goes right in there too. We always put our essential oils directly into our oils, unless the essential oil is an accelerating essential oil. So you kind of need to know that before you just start dumping essential oils into your oils. I'm going to put this in because I know that orange and bergamot are both oils that do not accelerate trace. And you'll kind of find this out as you make soap, but there are some oils that are notorious for accelerating trace, typically like spicy types of essential oils like clove and cinnamon. And also thyme is one that really accelerates trace. And then there's some that accelerate trace just a little bit, like geranium and fir needle and things like that. So you just kind of need to know that before you just dump your essential oils into your oils. Anytime I'm using an accelerating essential oil, I'll add that essential oil at trace. Okay, so that's that. Let's blend this up. That smells so good. This is a simple blend, but it's definitely one of my favorites. And it's perfect for this soap, which is just like a gentle, super moisturizing, good feeling soap. All right, let's take a temperature reading. These are at 88.6, so that's pretty good. And let's check our lye solution. I did check it before starting the camera. Put my gloves on. So this is our orange bergamot soap, and you can find this recipe on our website at muddymint.com if you're interested. We sell a bunch of recipes on our website, and these are all recipes that we've made in the past. If you're not aware and you're new to our channel, we used to make quite a lot of soap. We made soap for wholesale and retail, and we made about 50,000 bars a year. So these are soaps that have been out in the world for a long time. A lot of people love these soaps. And so that's why we sell our recipes, because they were proprietary recipes that we made for a long time. And they're, tested in the market. People love these bars. So it's not just a random soap recipe. Okay. Our lye is at 94.95. So that's good. All right, so we've got our goat milk in here. We've got our essential oils in here. The only other thing we're going to do is add a swirl in this soap. And it's an orange swirl. It's a very simple soap. It's basically going to be just plain color, although the orange essential oil does contribute a little bit of orangey color to the batter. And then we're doing a swirl with this. We used a blend of dark red Brazilian clay and yellow Brazilian clay for this soap. So together they make kind of a lighter orange color. Now, Brazilian clays are a little bit harder to come by these days. And so what I would suggest, if you can't get your hands on Brazilian clays, although apparently I've heard that Rainforest Chica carries them, so check there for Brazilian clays if you're looking for them. But otherwise, let me just go grab them. Okay, you can use French red and French yellow clays. I get these from New Directions Aromatics, and I'll just open them up so you can see the color is pretty similar. And I'm probably going to transition to using these clays rather than the Brazilian clays. And if you mix these together, you'll probably get a very similar orange. And you could actually, even though this is called French red, it's actually more of an orangey color. So you could probably just use the French red on its own even. And in my book, I do use French red clay for the Sandstone Canyon soap. So if you want to see what that color looks like, you can check that out. All right. So I mixed those two clays, the Brazilian clays, in here, and I added a little bit of water. So what I'm going to do, and I talk about this in a lot of my videos, I think about what I'm doing before I start, especially because I haven't made soap since October, which is like crazy. It's almost the end of January now, so it's been a little while. So I'm always like a little bit nervous when it's been a while, although this is a soap I've made a million times, so it should be just fine. So I like to walk through what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this batter to trace, and I'm going to pour off a little bit in here, and I'm going to pour the batter into the mold, and then I'm going to do a little swirl with this color. These are the molds I'm using today. These are our Nurture soap molds, and I have this swirling tool that's also from Nurture Soap. It's a little bit short for these molds, but what I do is I just swirl across like this. So I'm going to put the batter in, add the orange, and then I'm doing this kind of swirling motion inside, just so you can see it while there's no batter in there. And I sometimes go both directions. I'll go this way, and then I'll go this way. All right. Swirling is a really fun way to make a fun design with really very little effort. So, all right, let me rearrange some things over here. All right, I just like to clear off my workspace a little bit so I feel like I have room. Okay, let's blend these oils up. Okay. All right, here we go. We're going to add our lye water directly to the soap, and we're going to do a batter with a fairly light trace. We don't have a lot of work to do with this batter, but we do need to do a little bit. So all right. Make sure you get all of your lye water in there. A lot of people worry about having fresh milk in here because, you know, they've been using the goat milk ice cubes and they worry about the milk scorching. But I think because there's so many other ingredients in here right now and the lye has already cooled down, it doesn't do that. All right. All right, that looks good. We had problems for so long with our soap making, which turned out to be a result of the shea butter actually oxidizing and getting a little bit old, which, by the way, if you're having soap that thickens up super duper fast and you've kind of tested all other theories, it could be bad shea butter, old shea butter, or any kind of butter for that matter. All right, so we are done with the stick blender. And I'm going to give my batter a little bit of a stir. I always like to do this just to loosen everything up. And we're going to pour off some of this into our waiting hydrated clays. I always hydrate my clays. I don't like to add just powder to batter. I feel like it just incorporates better this way. And I'm not measuring or weighing this out. This is just kind of approximate. Okay, I'm going to mix that up really good. I find that when you add water too, you don't need to use the stick blender to mix everything up, which is nice because then your batter stays liquid or more fluid. If I were to put the stick blender in here and stick blend this, it would definitely get thick. Because this soap is so high in shea butter, it does get thick. Okay. I love the way this batter feels though. Something about goat milk soap batter is just really nice. Okay, this thickened up a little bit on me, so I'm going to loosen it up with a little bit of stirring. Again, I really like to do this. You know, some people are worried that if it's getting thick, like get it in the mold right away, but the stirring makes a huge difference. And I just feel like the batter just ends up nicer, more consistent. Okay, let's pour this into our molds. I'm so happy to be making soap again. Okay. Now I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not going right to the top because I know I'm adding some orange swirl in there. So there's a little extra batter that I need to take into account. One of the things that I like about working in a slab rather than using these molds, I love these molds, by the way, and they're great for smaller batches, but the slab is kind of nice because you don't need to sort of eyeball the height of each mold like I'm doing right now. You just pour it in the slab and you know you're at the right height. Okay. I'm going to get all this out. Okay, I'm going to hit these down on the table. Okay, and that's just to make sure that I don't have any air bubbles or anything like that. Okay. Now it's time to add our batter over here. And again, it might thicken up while it's just sitting there, but just give it a little bit of a stir and it'll be fine. All right. I like to go from up high, especially when things are a little bit thicker like this, just to make sure that it goes all the way to the bottom. Plus, it's kind of fun. All right. Okay, not quite done, but I'm going to tap these down just to see where I'm at. It's a little bit easier to see which mold needs more color when you tap things down and get a better feel for how much batter is in there. Okay. All right. Now we are going to use the swirling tool. And this might seem a little bit thick for swirling, but I actually like it more when it's a little thick because I find the swirls end up a little bit nicer. And this is a fat swirling tool, which is nice. All right, so I'm going to go in the middle because I poured the soap right in the center, and I'm just going to do that same swirling motion I showed you earlier. Okay, that one's done. There's no right way of doing this, by the way. I always get the batter off like this. All right, there we go. There's no right way of swirling. I mean, over time, you might develop your own technique, and when you cut it, you'll see what it looks like and think, okay, well, I could have gone a bit deeper, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to improve. I'm not too concerned because our soaps are really simple. We don't have any fancy designs in our soaps, so. Okay, then give this one more tap. And now I'm going to smooth out the tops. Oh, just love this batter. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but such a beautiful batter. There's something different about milk soaps, you know? They just have a really nice texture and consistency. Okay, the last thing to do is to texture the top. And I forgot to grab my spoon, so I'm going to go grab that. All right, here's my trusty spoon. I use the same spoon all the time. I don't know, I like the way it textures. This is just our signature muddy mint texture. Sometimes I like to have fun with the batter and just I like to do, I don't know, I like to play a little game sometimes and do I'll do both sides at once, or I'll do one side and another side, and then I'll come back. I could have waited a tiny bit longer for this batter to set up a little bit more, but it's pretty good right now. Man, can you tell how luscious this batter is? Ugh. I don't know. It's really nice. I love a good batter like this. My favorite batter is probably our goat milk and oatmeal soap, which you can get from, it's kind of attached to our honey lemon recipe. It's one of those 2-for-1. This is actually a 2-for-1 recipe too, because if you get the orange bergamot recipe, you'll also get the recipe for bergamot lime, which is the same base. It's a shea butter base with goat milk, but it just has a different scent and a slightly different look. So, all right, that's it. Our soap is done. Hopefully that helped you figure out how to add milk to your soaps or use the milk and oils method. If you've never done it before, definitely try it and let me know how it goes. If you're a diehard ice cube milk person, then that's awesome, especially if you have your own goats. I mean, use as much milk as you possibly can. However, I will say that once you get to a larger size and you're making really large batches of soap, like we were making about 400 bars per day when we were at our peak, sometimes more actually during the holiday season, more like 600. But When you're doing that, it's nice to have your lye water all ready to go to just add your goat milk in as a liquid, and it's just way faster and more efficient. And when you get to be, a large production soap studio, we weren't even that large, but larger, and you're making soap every single day in larger volumes, it's just really nice to come up with more efficient ways of doing things. And so that's where we sort of went with our business. We started off making goat milk ice cubes, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. And we just sort of evolved to this place where we're using 50-50 lye and adding our liquids directly to our soap, or to our oils, I should say. But we always kept using goat milk and stuff because I think it just adds so much to a soap, whether it's in carrot juice too. I love carrot juice for the color that it makes. And anyway, lots to talk about, but I'll leave it at that. I'm going to come back tomorrow and cut these for you because a lot of people say they like to see the final cut bars. So we'll be back in a little bit, tomorrow in 24 hours, and I'll cut these with you and I'll show you what they look like inside. Actually, one last quick thing. A lot of people have asked whether we put these in the fridge, our goat milk soaps, and a lot of people do put goat milk soaps in the fridge. And when we had our silicone soft-sided molds, we did that as well when I was, just starting out. And we put them in the fridge, and that would keep the goat milk soaps more white, which was really nice. They made for a very creamy looking soap. If you left them out on the counter, then they would gel and end up, a little bit more beigey colored. But I don't put these soaps in the fridge. For one thing, they already have color in them, so they're going to gel nicely, and the orange colors in here are going to get a lot brighter. So I'm not too worried about this being like a pure white soap. But also, if you put an insulated mold in the fridge, it doesn't really work that great. I learned that lesson when I first got these wood molds, and I was trying to put them in the fridge, and I'm realizing that, the wood is insulating, and the fridge is trying to cool things down, and the wood is trying to heat things up. So you usually end up with partial gel. So if you have wood molds, I would just embrace it, let it gel, add a little oatmeal to your goat milk soap so it's a goat milk and oatmeal, and then the color actually works perfectly for that. So just a little tip about putting your goat milk soaps in the fridge in case you're wondering. All right, friends, we are back to cut this soap. It's been about 24 hours, and this is what our soap looks like. It actually doesn't have much ash, which is super nice. And I'm just going to unmold. I thought I'd just do everything because we don't do this part of the video, or we don't include this in our videos very often, the actual cutting. Let me move that. So these Nurture soap molds are fantastic. I absolutely love them. I actually do this little trick because of the way that my texture is on top. I'm going to put this end on the table because it's a little bit flatter so I don't squish this one section. So that's one of the tricks that I do when I unmold. And then just kind of let out all the air, or the suction, I guess. And that's the first one. Oh, that looks good. All right. Looks like I might have gotten some partial gel. We'll see. But I'm not too worried about that. It usually goes away. It's pretty cool here at night. I think it was like 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit last night. So I'm not surprised that there's partial gel. The soap is still a little bit soft, so I'm being pretty careful here. Okay, so here we are with our two beautiful loaves. They smell super good, and I always put my loaves on end, which makes some people nervous, but that's just how I do it. If it's tippy, I don't do that, obviously. And then I have this little bench scraper tool and a bucket that I use to clear my table. Okay. I've already gotten my cutter ready. The strings are all set to go. And over here on the side, I have my aluminum tray, and I do put freezer paper on there because I don't want the soap to touch the aluminum. Since there's still some unsaponified soap in here, soap takes 48 hours to fully saponify, so there could still be some lye, and I don't want it to react with the aluminum on this tray. which is why I always use freezer paper. I also don't want the scents to transfer from one soap to another. So if I use this soap, let's say there was peppermint soap on here before, I'd have to clean this tray off pretty well so that it didn't transfer over to my orange bergamot. And I'm like very sensitive to scent transfer and those kinds of things. I don't like soaps, different scents to be touching each other. I'm maybe a little bit weird about it, but anyway, that's why we use freezer paper. Also for unscented soap, it's really nice to have a clean piece of freezer paper so that, you know, that soap stays completely unscented. And I always turn my loaves to the side like this. And you can see right here, there is some partial gel. And that might make our colors a little bit funny when we cut into the soap, but we'll see what it looks like. I'm going to make some ends as well. So let's see. Okay. I usually have this much closer to me when I cut, but I'm trying to make sure that this camera up here can see. All right, here we go. By the way, I never let the side thunk down. I've seen people let this thunk down, and every time I see it, I'm like, no, don't do that. All right. Here we go. Here's the inside. The swirl will get a little bit more defined as this cures, but there's a little bit of an orange swirl in there. Let's take a look. Because of the gel, it's not super clear right now, but let's see if this piece on the end. Oh, this one doesn't even have any orange inside. There's a little bit of a gel ring. Again, I'm not worried about that because I find that that gel ring normally goes away during the cure, so. All right, what I do, oh, this is a pretty good swirl right here. I'm just gonna take all of these off. And this soap is a little bit softer because it has so much shea butter. So if you are making this recipe, keep that in mind. You could let it sit in the mold maybe an extra day if you wanted to. I don't think it's necessary because it did unmold pretty easily, but normally I grab a bunch of these all at once, you know, like 3 at a time. I guess it works, but when the soap is a little more delicate, I try to be more careful. All right. And we're not going to do a full cutting segment at the end here because that's just going to make the video really long. We do cut our bars a little bit thicker. They're at 1 1/8. And so that makes actually exactly 16 bars. But because we do these little ends for samples, we end up getting 15 bars and 3 ends. And the 3 ends are exactly 1/3 of a bar. So works out pretty nice. We cut those samples in half. So you get a little 1/6 of a bar when you purchase soap from us as a sample. Okay. And I don't know when our next soap release is going to be. It's kind of up in the air because we were going to do one in April, but we're actually going to be out of town for a little while. And so going out of town and having to prep videos for that, and then on top of that, also having to make soap for release just seemed like a lot. So we decided to kind of take it easy. We're going to have a few soaps ready when we come back, but we're going to make a larger batch and probably do a release maybe in June or possibly even July. Yeah, these swirls look really subtle today. We sometimes get a much more defined swirl. I think just because of the gelling in here and possibly the way that I swirled it. Maybe I swirled it too much. I don't know. But again, in my book, I have this section called Embrace Imperfection. And the reality is that nobody has ever complained or returned a soap because my swirl wasn't perfect. So just keep that in mind. Don't be too hard on yourself. The soaps are still beautiful. They smell beautiful. This is an amazing goat milk soap with lots of shea butter, and it's just going to be fantastic to use. And like I said, the swirl might become a little more defined as the soap cures. All right, last 2 pieces. And that's that. Origin Bergamot is the official first soap of 2025. I'm super excited. I'm going to keep a bunch of these bars for myself, actually. I hope you enjoyed the milk and oils video. I actually got quite a few comments on Instagram about how people learned about this technique from my book and that they're using it all the time now, especially people that make goat milk soaps regularly, just because it's so much easier. And so I love hearing that. I would love to hear in the comments whether you've tried this technique, what you think. And if you haven't tried it, give it a try and let me know how it goes. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.